Thanks for joining me for this podcast. And I really have to trust that if you are listening right now, it is for a reason. And it could be because you have been blindsided with something, maybe in your past or even right now, what you're going through. And maybe you're wondering why, or you know that somebody who is. Because today I am going to talk to you about how sometimes we get zero signs from the spiritual world that something is going to happen on our journey. And then I'm going to give you some of the tips to help out, to maybe ease a little bit of the pain, and to give you a little bit of answers on why this happened. Because we always talk about getting signs from our past loved ones and spirit guides and things like that to let us know that really cool things are on the horizon, or to give us a warning that things are about to happen, and then we don't get those signs, and now we're like, WTF, what is going on? And that is why I thought it was really important to do this episode. This might be one that you should save or you should share with someone who is going through something that's similar to this, because it could definitely help them out. And it's kind of nuts because if you look back on some of the shows that we've done, I show you so many signs that spirit has been around, me, other people that I've talked to, with all these really cool signs. I have one about signs before my mom passed, what happened after my Aunt Juju passed. That was kind of a blindsided thing too, like didn't know that she was going to pass. And the same thing like with my Aunt Betty. So the Aunt Betty thing, that was also an episode where I did where, yes, I had signs. And it felt comforting to me that spirit was like, yep, Heather, we're sending you these signs because this is going to happen. But recently something happened, and I don't know if she's listening, so don't worry, I'm not going to give anything away so that, she can keep her privacy. But one of my really great best friends got put on hospice last week, and that's the reason why there was no Wednesday episode. And it kind of blindsided me because I really didn't feel like there was any signs, and I didn't understand why this happened at first. At first I can look back and I'd be like, was there some signs? No, I really don't think there was, but we'll get more into that. And so I was like, wow, I wonder if some of these things that I say are really going to help out you. And so we're going to just dive in right now, and I'm going to talk to you about why there are no signs, some plausible reasons why you were totally blindsided and you didn't get a heads up, okay? So we're going to go with one of them, which is you were not meant to get a heads up. It was meant to be like a surprise party, all right? You were needing to experience this. So this is going to be part of your soul contract. Before you came here to live this beautiful, wonderful life, you went ahead and signed a soul contract. And in that, you are given challenges and fun times and all these things to truly overcome, and for you to truly experience. And I know it sounds really weird because it's like, why would we sign up to experience loss and heartache and grief? And that is because in our true home, on the other side, there is none of that. We don't really have anything to be sad or to be angry and all those things about. So this is only something that we can get while we're in these human bodies. So you are needing to experience that. Your soul maybe signed up for it, and you wanted it to be a surprise, like a surprise party, those are. All right, another one is, and this might be an obvious one, is you missed them. There were signs, but you were maybe looking too much into something else and those kinds of things. And I just have to tell you that if you were blindsided by something that happened, and you might be able to think about things even in the past as I speak. If you were blindsided and then you go back and you look and you see those signs, like, oh my gosh, there was this maybe, and you just start to nitpick like your actions, your choices, your decisions, the things that you did, you're like, oh my God, don't do that to yourself. And the reason being is because sometimes those signs were not meant for you to be seen, but it was meant for you to look back on so that you could have comfort. I hope that's making sense, because it's just kind of like looking back and being like, wow, I truly wasn't alone. It kind of reminds me of that Footprints in the Sand poem, if you will, about Jesus. And it's like, wow, this man was walking along Jesus. But then he's like, man, I look back on my life and I see that there is only one set of footprints in the sand during some of the most difficult times I ever had in my life. And I don't understand why you would leave me during those tough times. And Jesus said back to him, oh, my dear one, I never left you. During those times is when I carried you. But you may not even feel that. You might still be thinking that you only see one step of footprints, but they are there. And a little thing that I live by is if I were meant to see those signs, I would have seen them. They would have made them stronger. They would have made them a part of my life. They would, you know how they are. They can truly perform crazy miracles, crazy coincidences. So if you were truly meant to see that sign, they would have sent it to you. And when I look back on some of the signs for my mom, especially once she got sick and everything, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even believe they sent me so many signs. It was so obvious, it's so crazy. And I get to have that be part of my story. If you are not getting those signs at all, like I didn't get signs that my friend was going to go on hospice and, after just 1 month of being sick. And also I didn't know about my Aunt Juju going to pass away. It was like I was totally blindsided, but that was because I wasn't meant to know. And then when I look back, and if there were any signs, they weren't strong enough. They were just meant to be kind of like little hugs that I can look back on and be like, oh wow, they really were there. So instead of looking at it from a more pessimistic point of view, like, oh man, I really dropped the ball, you can look at it in a more optimistic point of view, being like, wow, they truly were with me. They really, really do see what happened. And they were with me the whole time, kind of like Jesus was truly carrying me, or whatever you believe in. All right. Another one is why you might be missing these signs is because it involves somebody else. And it was part of their destiny to go through this. And maybe if you would have gotten those signs and things like that, then it would have impeded their life journey, their soul contract. So oftentimes we want to help out other people, and we're like, oh man, I wish that I could have, even helped them, given them a heads up, seen it coming, offered better advice, those kinds of things. And we don't do it, and then we kind of get hard on ourselves. But we have to trust too that it didn't come to us because they were meant to experience it. And if it's something that happened between you and another person, that is the reason why. So think about that, see if that resonates with you. And I'm going on to another one, which is another reason why you may not be seeing these signs is because you're not open to signs. Isn't that kind of crazy? So this happens when you don't have a working relationship, that you've made it known to the spiritual world that you're cool with sending them sending you signs. And that kind of goes in a little bit with free will. So I want you to make sure that you tell them, even outside in your voice or inside your mind, that you are 1000% open to seeing signs. Now, this isn't very common, to be honest. Usually spirit will always send you signs no matter if you have declared that you are open or not, but I can definitely see that there are some people who are very closed off. Maybe those people who don't like taking advice, maybe those people who are very private, maybe a lot of those people who are just more, I want to say, the masculine energy, and that means they're more about doing and they're more about fending for themselves in a way, as opposed to being open and receiving, which is the next point too, which is, the feminine energy. Are you open to receiving these signs? And a couple things that can go ahead and affect your ability to see signs, to get them, to receive them, is one of them is that you are vibrating low, so you might not be able to see them and really recognize them for what they are. And this can really happen when you're going through a time of grief. So if you're grieving a loved one and those kinds of things, because grief is a very low vibrating emotion. And what happens then is it's almost like your grief kind of blinds you from those signs, and is a reason why that you might think that your loved one's not sending you signs too. So that's one of the most common ones. But also fear, which fear is also a very low vibrating emotion, if not the lowest. And what happens here is that when you are so fearful of signs, maybe you're scared that they're going to tell you something bad. Maybe you're scared because you don't know who it's coming from. Maybe you're scared because what if you started believing in signs, then what would so-and-so think? Does that make sense? You're kind of scared about what other people will think. And then what happens is this fear energy creates kind of like a block. And then that kind of stops you from seeing the signs that your spirit guides, past loved ones, and angels are trying to show you. Okay. And another reason why you might not be open to receiving signs is because your mind is too busy to see them, because there's no room for you to see signs. Because a lot of times I see signs when I'm driving. So I see signs on license plates, I see signs on billboards, I see signs just like freaking everywhere. Like, I love driving. I think it's a great way to, get spiritual connection. But one thing I do is I really don't have the radio on ever. I also don't have any people in my car. Usually I'm driving by myself, so I don't have any kind of emotion. But if you are someone who has kids or always riding with someone, and then you have all that stimulus, in the back seat next to you, those kinds of things, and then you also have like the radio on, and so like conversing back and forth and having conversation, there's so much stimulant, if you will. There's so much going on that your mind is on overload. Because if you remember, and you know this, that your mind remembers every single thing. It literally has a recorder that's recording every single moment of it. And then every single moment, your brain is trying to piece out things to tell you about that are really important, that maybe you should know. But there's so much of our daily life that our brain is like, okay, you know what, we're just going to have to throw this away. That things that she's seeing and feeling and things like that, because we don't got room for that. We don't got time for that. We don't got room for that. And so that was also something that could be happening. And that is the reason why that, so many spiritual teachers are always about meditation and things like that, because we're able to decrease those thoughts in the mind. We're able to not, we're able to see when we're being overstimulated, because then we're like, whoa, this is way too much energy going on. I don't know what I would do if I was in a car trying to talk to somebody with a radio playing really loud with like a whole bunch of kids like screaming in the back. Like, I think that it would just be overstimulating to me. And so there's no way that I'd probably get a spiritual connection. But if that is you, that is okay, because you're going to find other times in your day to be able to have a little bit more space between your thoughts. And one thing that you can really do with that is being in the present moment. That's really going to help, because if you are in a car with someone and they're talking to you and you have all this commotion going on, but if you're staying in the present moment, then at least you're staying inside of that conversation, and then you are not going down rabbit holes in your mind. So that would actually stop a little bit of those thoughts, okay? And for some reason I feel guided to tell you this too, is that if you keep on thinking of something, then you should write it down. You should write it down. You should do something about it. A majority of our thoughts are recycled thoughts, but a lot of times the thoughts keep on coming up. Sometimes that's a sign that you got to take care of it. It's good to take care of it now. I have tons of stories. One of them that's coming up right now is I was doing a puzzle with my son, and we were doing an awesome puzzle, and I had dropped one of the puzzle pieces behind my dresser. And I was like, hey, I don't care. And I kept on getting nudged to go ahead and look at, get the freaking puzzle piece. But it was so funny. At the same time, I had lost my wedding ring. So I was totally freaking out about not being able to find my wedding ring. Couldn't find it anywhere, and I was really freaking out. So finally, me and my son were doing the puzzle, and I just couldn't stop it anymore. I kept on thinking about the stupid puzzle piece, and then when I went back to look for the puzzle piece behind the dresser, I found my wedding ring. So sometimes those nudges and the things that you have to do are coming to you because it's going to help you out in more ways than you can expect. All right, here are some tips to help you when you have been blindsided or you feel like you have. All right, it's not a part of the plan. We were not meant to have a generic experience when we come here, just like a cookie cutter way. And I always have to say, like, this is all part of a plan, no matter if I can understand it or not. And I know it sounds so crazy, and I know you probably hate hearing that, but if you just engulf that concept, like, your life is just going to be so much easier. And here's a great freaking example, is I was down on my luck, and my son was little. He was probably about 7 or 8 years old, and I had accidentally misread some of the dates on some paperwork. And it was Thanksgiving Day, and we were about to go celebrate Thanksgiving, and that's when I realized I had really messed up. I had messed up so bad that we were going to be evicted by Monday morning, if not sooner than that, if not on Friday, because it was going to be, Good Friday, well, not Good Friday, Black Friday. And so I was like, oh my God, I think that the eviction thing was the day before. And so now I'm like, oh my God, we have to move all of our stuff out right now because I didn't know that, whoever was going to come to evict us were going to be evicting us on Friday. Because technically it's not really truly a holiday, right? Even though a lot of places are closed, I couldn't take that chance and wait till Monday. But at the very least, I had 3 or 4 days to move out. And I remember just being so incredibly hard on myself. And I cannot believe that I did that. I can't believe that I missed the dates. And, I was going to get help to pay for the rent and things like that. And I thought I had a little bit of time. And for some reason, when I read that paperwork, I made such a horrible, big mistake. And so now I am like, oh my God, I literally am going to have no place to live. None. Like, I have no heads up to give to people. And all the people that I had and that I knew at the time, especially like my family, they were so involved in their own lives and struggling themselves, and can they take me and my son and those kinds of things. And, what was really great was I belonged to a Lutheran church, and, I went and talked to the pastor, who was one of my really great friends. Like, I loved him to death. And he actually spent his own money and got me a hotel room with Mason for the week. So I was really grateful for that. And guess what? I was able to pay it forward, and I was able to donate all the money back to the church that he had spent on me during that time. So it's really cool that things can come full circle. And so I know, though, that is part of my story now. That is part of my thing. That happened for a reason, even though at the time I could not believe what that reason was. And now it's part of my story. And so now I get to share that with you, so to give you kind of hope too, being like, oh wow, Heather was almost freaking evicted, and look at where she lives now. Well, I was freaking evicted. Okay, I was. It totally was an eviction notice and everything. And she was able to do all these things. So maybe it could help out you or a friend. Okay, so a couple more tips to help you when you've been blindsided is that start asking for signs now. So once you have been blindsided, now I want you to be like, okay, that was nice to be blindsided. I always like to get smacked upside the head, Spirit. Thank you very much. But can you help me now? Start giving me signs. So now, since like my Aunt Juju passed, I didn't get any signs beforehand, but then after she passed, I'm like, okay, I need signs now. I need signs of what happened. I need signs of why this freaking happened. Like, how come I did not get a heads up? And then what's happening now? Like, I want to know. So now that's what you can do. You can go ahead and start asking for signs, like where you're at. And so, going on with my eviction story, I ended up going ahead. I'm not sure, I didn't really ask for signs, but guess what? I realized that Spirit was with me, even though I wasn't spiritual back then at all. And I was able to find a place to live for me and my son, a cute little house, within 7 days, 1 week. So in 1 week, I had gotten evicted, started living at a hotel, and then, by the way, I was also going to school, so that was like really freaking crazy, and I couldn't miss any of my classes. So it's like, oh my gosh, I got to sit here in class when I really need to be finding a house for my son. I'm like, am I literally one of those people who is going to school homeless? Yes, I am. I'm living at a hotel right now that my pastor paid for. Craziness. But I kept on being like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it was really crazy because I was able to find a place to live. I got help with the security deposit and everything, and I was able to move in the same day that I had to move out of the hotel room. So I want you to think about that okay, thank you, Spirit. You did not give me a heads up before, but you can give me a heads up now and show me some of these signs. Okay, so another tip that I'd love to give to you is use it as a bonding opportunity, to get closer to Spirit. This is also going to help you if you like journal is a really great way to connect to yourself, to your higher power. Also, maybe this is a time for you to start meditating, making that space in between your thoughts so that you can hear Spirit a little bit better. When you have less thoughts inside of your mind, you actually have less challenges. You have a little bit of less ways. It makes it a little more clear, I should say, for Spirit to get a word in edgewise. Okay, so another one is sometimes we see the signs looking back, and it can give us comfort. So that's one of the other tips, is because then you can look back and be like, yes, we kind of talked about it a little bit. There were signs. I just didn't get those signs. So let me see. So with my friend, I think back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I kept on thinking about her. I kept on thinking about her and thinking about her. And I really didn't reach out to her. I got busy or whatever it is. But I remember Spirit kind of like just like whispering. But they didn't make it big or well known or anything like that. So I really didn't think anything of it. If they really truly wanted me to know, they would have made it like on blast. Okay. But sometimes we can look back and be like, oh, maybe there was a couple little signs. And remember, like we talked about, we're not going to look back on it with a pessimistic point of view and regret and things like that. We're going to look back on it and be like, wow, there really was signs. There is something bigger at play happening. Okay, so I just thought that this would also help too, just in case. And that is altogether, don't look like life is the reality. Don't look at life like it is the end all be all. Don't look at life like it's just this one and done kind of thing, okay? We need to look at life as you're living in the freaking matrix, okay? That you are in summer camp. The other side is really true home. That you are in the middle of playing dodgeball right now. Do you remember in school when you're in the gym and you used to play dodgeball and then your friends would get out and then they would go to the sidelines? That is your past loved ones, okay? You are still in the middle of the dodgeball game. They got hit out and now they're on the sidelines. And then a lot of times too, I love thinking about it this way, is that the more people that I lose, then it's like the more of those cheerleaders I have standing on the side cheering me on. And they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's almost like, hey, we got out, but you could still win this game. And so I thought that was really kind of a cool way to think of it. Also, thinking of your life as a movie and their characters. And there's always going to be plot twists. That's what makes a freaking good movie. If you had a movie that you were watching and everything was maybe hunky dory all the time and there wasn't really any plot twists or crazy things and things like that, it's going to be a freaking boring movie. Do you want your life to be boring? You might actually. I think my husband really wants a boring life. And I'm like, no, you marry the wrong person. You might want those plot twists to turn into things that are good. But a lot of times what makes a movie really good is when the character is down on their luck and they're lower and they're like going through bad things. I don't know why, but Rocky is coming up to me right now, that movie. And then what's up happening is that they transform in the midst of the challenge. And then they become this awesome, amazing person. Okay, so think of your life a little bit like that. Like you have the co-stars, some of them are going to get fired, all those things. You know, life is also truly like a game, and you have to play it. There's literally books called The Game of Life and how to play it. And so just think of it that way. Don't think of life so serious and so finite. You know, have a little bit more fun. You only get to be this person that you are once. And going ahead and saying, okay, I feel so bad because I didn't see the sign and that sign and those kinds of things, and maybe because I didn't see the signs, you know, spirit's not talking to me and all those things. No, 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 none of that is true. So, and hopefully now you have some reasons on why you didn't get any signs and also some tips. And whatever is coming up to you right now, like whichever tips, whatever that I said that is really standing out to you right now, take that as a sign that that is what your soul needs. You are recognizing that right now because that is something that is going to really help you, or it is like a void to fill kind of situation, but it definitely is something that you need to take with you. Definitely marinate on it, think about it, maybe even apply it. All right. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you are subscribed, and I'm going to be seeing you on Monday for our reading.